Hello, Matthew Palmer here, and this is a little video that I just wanted to put out there just to kind of show you what I'm currently working on, but also just kind of talk about those little finishing touches, you know, that you would do in your watercolour painting. So I'm doing a painting here. It's actually of Sherwood Forest, and it's got Robin Hood, of course, and this is the picture here. So it's like a bit of a silhouette kind of evening atmosphere, beautiful sort of vibrant watercolor picture with strong silhouettes of not only Robin Hood but also the trees. But at the minute the picture is looking very dark in the focal point. There's enough dark to warrant a silhouette, but I feel like there's a few little finishing touches that I could bring into this, especially on Robin Hood, because it looks a little bit sort of solid and a little bit definite. So what I want to do first is that I want to actually use some I've got a mixture here. So I've got a size 6 brush. I've got a mixture of natural grey and natural brown, and I'm actually painting in some sort of random grasses, if you like. So in the foreground, because painting is very much like photography, lots of foreground detail and interest is actually quite important. And adding lots of quick, spontaneous flicks of your brush like I'm doing here will give us foreground interest, but also what it'll do, it'll help to sit the figure down. So I'm adding lots of little grasses around, lots of little flicks of the brush here, very spontaneously done. I want to put some shadows in these in a minute too. Don't be afraid about doing this, you know, it can really build it up, and the quicker that you do this, the better, really, I think, in my opinion. It can just make it look a lot more natural, you know. And even at the top of the trees, I'm going to turn this picture upside down because it's getting a bit dark here. So using that same browny grey, which is just basically natural brown, natural grey mixed together, I'm going to use that and just give it a bit of a wipe on tissue. And I'm just going to bring in a little bit of almost what I'd say to be dry brush, because what it'll do is it'll calm down the darkness, because there's lots of dark in these trees. And I don't particularly want it to be as dark as that. And I'm just going to lightly skim a little bit of that dark in some of the other trees elsewhere, just to bring a little bit of balance to the picture. Like, you know, in these trees here, it's like I say, it's all a bit dark here. So bringing in them little bits of detail would be quite nice. And if I darken, like almost quick brush strokes, you know, quick flicks of the brush. It's amazing what a difference it'll actually make to the picture, I think. It will take away that clean, definite vibe. Might just put a few little dots, little spots with the tip of the brush, just to make the foliage look a little bit more interesting as well. It all helps. If you're careful, another nice finishing touch, and you need to protect your picture. So I'm going to put that over there. So that's just another piece of paper then. I just want to protect the side pieces with anything I can put my hands on, a little bit of packaging there and a bit of tissue just to protect that area. I don't want to go too mad with this. And basically what I want to do is I want to take some of this brownie, maybe make it a touch more brown, to be fair. Browny, it's like a warm grey. Notice I'm wiping the brush on the side of the palette, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bang the brush over my finger to splatter, but I've protected the areas that I don't want to splatter, kind of. Probably about right. And then just go in and do a bit of that. I mean, it literally goes everywhere. Might see it better here, but it literally was pulled back a little bit with that camera, but it literally goes, that tissue, it literally goes all over the place, over the keyboard. But you know, this is what art studios are all about, aren't they? Yeah? What studios are meant to be covered in paint. And of course, you could even do that as well across the top of the picture. So I could do a similar thing up here as well. I'd probably protect that part and maybe put the tissue there, and maybe protect that edge and possibly even that edge. So I've sort of loosely protected the area and making the colour, I think I want the colour to be quite brown at this point, so quite a light, almost an autumnal colour. Maybe mix it with a bit of natural orange or something as well. Don't want it to be too heavy. Hold the brush loosely and just give it a bit of a splatter. It'll give it a bit more of a autumnal vibe. And if you are wanting bigger splatters, use a bigger brush. It's simple as that, really. You know, it's how it works. And you go in and just sort of tap it against the, you can see now that's proper giving it some welly, but it's a lovely little effect. And if I just have a bit of a clean up the stock, this is the back of a picture of Linda's farm that I've just done. This is a proper working video, this, but it does actually give quite a nice level of detail. Something else that I think would work, especially down here, would be to put some shadows in. Again, all part of that finishing touch thing. So I've got my size 6 brush. I'm going to use some natural grey, which is a real lovely shadow colour. There it is, not too strong. I've got quite a pointy brush. This is a Watercolour TV branded brush, and what I want to do here is obviously the light's kind of in the middle, so what I want to do here is just put some little bits of shadows coming from these trees, grasses even, on this side, almost like little bits of dappled light over this side as well, with the shadow where the sun's coming through. You could even just be a bit careful and put some actual physical shadows of light cast. Very pale grey, very light grey, just almost like little sort of dappled light shadows, really. Doesn't want too much. Get some shadows from these ferns, and it's quite surprising what a difference it makes putting a bit of, and you can see how I've done it. I've done it like on an angle, so it helps to lead you into the picture. Helps you sort of look towards that light source, which is of course the tree. Got one over here. Coming down. So proper cast shadows, painted really loosely. Makes the grasses stand up quite nice. Also helps to give a bit of shadow. I mean, that same shadow can actually be applied over the tops of the trees as well. You don't really see it that well, but you could bring a little bit over the tops of these trees to give a bit of a dappled effect. As you go up in these tall trees, little diagonal lines of that grey will help to give a base. Now, it's still quite dark, so using a dedicated lift out brush, which I've got over here in the stash. Here it is. This is a Matthew Palmer lift out brush, extra large one. It's a special bristle that's designed for this. It's one of the most popular brushes that we sell. You just lightly squeeze the water out of it, so you've got that very definite effect. And what you do is you literally have a piece of tissue in your hand ready to tap off. And I've actually used this already on the picture. I've used it already on the trees. I've already gone in and washed off a little bit of colour. But we should do some of that on Robin Hood as well, to be honest. So we kind of don't want too much because we could quite easily spoil it. So just going in with a little bit of light, just on the corner there, just give it a tap. It'll come off so easy. Look, so it gives you a little bit of the sense of some sort of a jacket or something, yeah. just a little bit on the bottom of his arm there. You can actually see the paint coming off if you look at the brush. Tap that and you can see almost that's giving that impression. If you take too much off, by the way, which is very easily done, you can just sort of pull back in the surrounding colour, but don't dab it. Let it dry naturally. So just give it that little tap there. So that's just giving that impression as though that sleeve, that arm's just coming in to help to put it into context, you know. It's amazing what a difference a few highlights make, really, to a picture. A little bit coming down one of the legs, just so though the light's catching. So I mean, just less is more. It kind of works as a silhouette, but I just feel it to go a bit further. I've got two sizes. I've got the large and the extra large one. So I'm going to use the large one here. This is the lift out and highlight brush. These are all brushes that I've designed over the years to make painting more accessible for people. I think that's the statement, really. Just a little bit of highlight on the top of the hat there. Put a little bit of detail in the sleeve there. Tap it off. You're sort of moulding your paint. You can use normal brushes for this. You can use just a normal everyday, if I can find one, a normal everyday size 6 brush. But the problem is it doesn't come off as easy. So you just have to be a little bit aware that you have to do a bit more scrubby. And you don't get so much of a clean edge that you do with a lift out brush. Lift out brushes are beautiful. They really are. So these are all the little bits of finishing touches that I wanted to sort of bring in, and I just wanted to show you really some of the little bits what I'd say would be a nice little finishing touch, a bit of a satchel or something just there on that corner. They can tap it off and bit of a tap like that, and then maybe a few highlights there. So there's just enough light coming through just to give a very subtle amount of light. Don't want to overdo that because quite easily you could, if you're not careful. Bit on the back of the, is that the quiver? Quiver? I think it's a quiver, isn't it? Quiver. But even a bit on the side of the bow there, just catching. Where else will I do this? Probably up towards the top here, where we've got this massive darkness, what I'm not massively a fan of. I'm just going to wash the tree, that tree as it goes up. If I lighten the tree, it'll push some of the foliage behind. See what I mean? So having an effect of light and dark, increasing the, look at all the splatters all over the arm. See what I mean? It goes everywhere. Just little bits of finishy touches really does make such a difference. Same here, because that's a bit messy there. So if I was to use a lift out brush here, it'd work lovely because I can simply lighten the tree as it comes down. And it'll wash away some of that messy leaf and bring the tree forward and push the branches behind. It's a lovely effect as well when you've got an area like, so it's a dedicated lift out brush. It's called, you can see here, Matthew Palmer lift out brush. There's actually 3 sizes. This one's seen some action. It's probably about 7 years old, but very popular brushes. It takes the paint off clean and crisp, so make sure you check them out if you've not already had the chance to. And I'm quite a fan of these. It's just a lovely finishing touch to a watercolour It's really effective where you've got a branch, like here, for example, where you've got a branch that's kind of going out. You can actually wash the branch out. Same there as well, if you bring some light into there. Look how those branches now grow from the middle of the tree rather than the edge. Because lots of people paint trees two-dimensionally. Like here, I mean, you can see I've done it already there, so I've lifted that one out there, and it makes that branch look as though it's growing from the tree. So it's quite a nice effect. So worth a little bit of scrubbing and wiping, and it changes it. I mean, I must admit it does change it. It's still quite dark there, so I might just get a little bit of a couple of branches just over the top. It just pushes it back, brings it forward. I love it. So yeah, I mean that's looking nice. I'm a lot more happy with the picture. Let's actually have a look at it from back here, so you can see how the picture's shaping up nice. There's a lot of dark down here. I want to get a bit of dark up on these trees next, just to move on to that. So I'm just going to use a size 6 brush. Natural grey is a shadow colour. Don't be afraid about using it quite dark, to be honest. And I just feel like a little bit of extra dark in the trees will just help the picture be a bit more balanced. Because obviously I put a lot of time into the character, but not so much in the trees. So just going in with a bit of natural grey just to support a few of these little shadows here and there. If you sort of flick your brush loosely up in the bottom of the tree, it'll bring some darkness into it. It all helps, don't it? It all helps to balance the picture. Nice. Yeah, I think I'm quite happy with that. I think it now works well. You know, just adding that little bit of extra grey into those trees has helped them to look a bit more as though they've got a bit more interest to it. If you do wash out, you'll notice that it sometimes looks a little bit misty, a little bit milky. So quite often just to go in and just to tidy up with a bit of a sharp edge isn't a bad call. What else would we do? Would we do any more lifting out on Robin Hood? I think we're looking good. I think it's a fine balance between taking the paint out and taking too much. I mean, just that little highlight under the arm there is actually enough, I think. Might just bring a little bit, just a little bit of highlight, just on the neck there, coming into the little. You can see it just doesn't lift off the same with a round brush. It does lift off, but just not as good as a dedicated lift out brush like this. I mean, these are like, I don't know, a few pounds. They're not expensive brushes by any means, but they do always work really well. Just a little V shape there, it just makes the sort of jacket stand out a little bit. If you do find you lift too much out, it's really easy to go in, because I think I brought a little bit too much out of that, because the string's sort of here, so I don't want too much to come out of that. You can see I've been very busy on this picture, pottering. There's always that argument for doing more, but there's always an argument for knowing when to stop. And when do you know when to stop? When you start looking for things to do, probably. That's probably the thing to say. I'm just going to pop I still think that's a bit dark, so I'm just going to put a bit of water on it and give it a tap. Because watercolour's good for that. You can lift out and remove with ease. You really can. Let's get a bit of dark over here. A bit dark in these trees. Yeah, I think we've created quite an interesting picture. We should probably try and get a mount for this one. Actually, I always keep a few. Got these bevel mounts that I use for. You can actually buy these on Watercolour TV as well. So these are just like a nice sort of quality, like a bevel kind of thing, you know. And on a picture, it looks lovely when you put it on a. There you go. Look at that. It's made a. It's quite a simplistic picture, not necessarily a you know, a huge amount of colours by any means, but enough to make a lovely scene in watercolours. So I hope you've enjoyed that little insight into all the little finishing touches in my watercolour adventures. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.